We're going to talk now about the cell and revising what the cell has in it and the organelles that we need to know for a plant and animal cell. So this is an animal cell, and you can tell that it's an animal cell because it has no fixed shape. A plant cell and a bacterial cell both have a cell wall, and so they are going to have a more regular shape. An animal cell doesn't have a fixed shape, and so the first thing to say is that this on the outside is the cell membrane. So the cell membrane controls what goes into and out of the cell, and this is a huge evolutionary step in history because it meant that a cell could control its own internal conditions, and this meant that it was more likely to survive. In the middle of the cell we have a nucleus, and this contains the DNA and also controls the activities of the cell. We have mitochondria, and mitochondria there's numerous ones. They do aerobic respiration. That is, they break down glucose with oxygen to produce energy. We actually should say release energy, and that also produces carbon dioxide and water, which we get rid of. We have tiny ribosomes, which are the sites of protein synthesis. Proteins are used for growth and repair, and most of the structures we see in biology are built by proteins. So ribosomes are hugely important in building those. And then we have, throughout the cell, the cytoplasm. And this is where chemical reactions take place. Spelt cytoplasm. Cyte is cell and plasm. Okay. So the 5 organelles we need to know about are the cell membrane, the mitochondrion, the ribosome, the nucleus, and the cytoplasm. And that's the way an animal cell looks. Now, if we were to think about a plant cell, we would be thinking about a very similar cell because it is also a eukaryote. And a eukaryote is a cell that has a nucleus. A prokaryote doesn't. And so, with a plant cell, we would have a rigid cell wall, which is on the outside. It would also have a cell membrane. All cells have a cell membrane because all cells can control what goes in and out of them. A plant cell will also have a nucleus, but it will also have, and we do this in red, what we call a permanent vacuole. And a vacuole is used to make the cell nice and plump. It will have sap inside it and water, which pushes out, and therefore this further pushes out on the rest of the cell and makes the cell what we call turgid. Turgid means plump. And the reason this is so important is that plant cells, or plants in general, don't have a skeleton. So they need to use the pressure of water pushing out to create a rigid structure that can defy gravity. And it's amazing to think, if you think of a plant that's got a stem, it is holding itself up, it's holding the leaves up against gravity because the cells have all got what we call the hydrostatic pressure of the water pushing out. And this permanent vacuole is very important for this. Plant cells also have very important organelles called chloroplasts, which are the organelles responsible for photosynthesis. They contain chlorophyll. So far we can see with the plant cell, we have got the cell wall, which by the way is made of cellulose. We've got the permanent vacuole, and we've got the chloroplasts. These are all different from an animal cell. But a plant cell, because it's a eukaryote, also shares all of the things that an animal cell has. So I've already talked about the nucleus, but we'd also have the ribosomes which are the site of protein synthesis, and we would have those mitochondria, which are responsible for aerobic respiration. So the way that we can look at this is that an animal cell has nucleus, ribosome, mitochondrion, mitochondria is the plural, a cell membrane, and cytoplasm. And a plant cell has all of these plus a cell wall, a permanent vacuole, and chloroplasts. Which contain chlorophyll and which do photosynthesis. And so there are 5 organelles in both plant and animal cells, and there's a further 3 that plants have that animals don't. And that is a run through of the animal and plant cells. Now, in an exam, you might be asked what the differences are between plant and animal cells. And they can do this in 2 ways. They could show you a picture of a cell which clearly contains a cell wall, and you would need to know the 5 animal cell organelles and the 3 extra plant cell organelles and say, it's got a cell wall, but it's a eukaryotic cell because it's got a nucleus, for example, and therefore that must be a plant cell. Or they might show you a picture of a cell which doesn't have a regular shape, and that would indicate to you that it doesn't have a cell wall, so therefore it must be an animal cell. It might be a cell that contains chloroplasts, therefore it must be a plant cell. And the other way that they might ask about organelles for either plant or animal cells is asking you to speculate, which means to think about whether a certain type of organelle would be very common in a certain cell. So, for example, if we had a sperm cell, we know that a sperm cell has got a tail and it does lots of swimming. So what's this going to require lots of? Well, it's going to need a lot of energy to do its job. Then, knowing your organelles, you know that the mitochondrion is responsible for aerobic respiration and energy release. So you would expect this sperm cell to have loads and loads of mitochondria. If they gave you a cell which was, for example, in the throat, in the trachea, which produces mucus, which is a protein. If it produces lots of mucus, and mucus is a protein, you would expect there to be many, 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 many ribosomes in that cell. So the other way they could ask you it is basing the fact that you are meant to know which organelles are in which cell and what they do. They could ask you in a roundabout way of saying, this cell does lots of this, what must it have in it? So there is a summary of plant and animal cells.